okay, so I'm getting ready to submit my overview. But I know I want some feedback on a couple of areas that I got stuck, but I don't want to fail my overview. So what do I do about submitting this and getting feedback while also balancing making sure that I'm not, failing, which is something that we
Right.
say very lightly here.
I mean, I think, yeah, I'm not really a fan of a traditional grading system when it comes to learning how to coach. I think it goes contrary to a lot of what I find and cherish in the coaching model, which is really about empowerment. It's an empowerment basis, and it's about gaining the skill sets, and it's about becoming a much better coach. And I know the assessment process, it helps people reach that standard so that they know, okay, I've reached a standard that you can proceed with confidence. And it's really designed to help people become better coaches.
Mm.
Uh, and so from a pure learning standpoint, I would encourage the coach to take the clips and listen to those clips with your trainer and go that direction. I loved it when I was a trainer and certain students would bring clips of themselves coaching to the class and say, I have a clip. It's 5 minutes. Can we listen to it? And those are some of the most amazing learnings out of those kind of experiences. So that's what I would do. If I were the coach, I would bring those to your class, bring those to your group mentor coaching, just bring those to, anyone, anyone who you can. Now for the assessor, that might be the one exception. Like, maybe not bring it to the assessor. If life happens, you need to pass, and this is your recording. Do you need to tell the assessor, hey, these are all the areas where I think I did really poorly, but what I hope I still pass. I don't know. Maybe a more pragmatic viewpoint would be better, to pass the scale. But then, from a growth mindset standpoint, I think a lot of coaches are harder judges on themselves than they need to be. And from a growth mindset standpoint, there really is no limit on the number of assessments you can take or use, and you only need to pass
Mm.
one out of 3 or 4. So we need to do all of them, but you only need to pass once. I would bring it. I would bring it to the assessor. Let the assessor look at it and do what they do. I think the learning that people will get from getting feedback is way more valuable than passing the assessment. And when students get into that perspective, ironically, they pass the assessment. So it's almost like that, those who don't want, what I mean? It's almost like those who don't want it will receive it, kind of thing.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is what I tell folks when I'm training is when I was going through mine, I really value feedback. It's something that I really thrive on. And so I did take it to my assessor and I would say, I rated myself here poorly, but I'm hoping we can listen to it together because I really got stuck and I really didn't know what to do. And I'd love to get your feedback on what I should have done differently. And sometimes I had great assessors and sometimes it was like, oh, Britt, I think you're being a little too hard on yourself. Like this actually wasn't as bad as I would give myself a 2 and they were like, this is probably more like a 5 or a 6, so that was great feedback. But it was also nice to be able to like, for me, I love the approach of our overviews, our learning tools. And so when you get feedback, if everything you submit is perfect, you're never going to know what areas you can grow and learn and develop in. So I really value the fact that, okay, I can go to my assessor or my trainer and say, hey, like this is an area I got stuck. What should I have done differently or what could I have done differently here? I'm still like racking my brain and I don't know. And it was really nice to get feedback then right there, real time, right after listening to it. And then I was able to take that and apply it to my next session and then bring an even better recording to my next overview, which I was then able to pass, right? So I understood that you only have to pass one, so I might as well get as much learning as I possibly can out of the others. so that I can submit my last one as like an, let's blow my assessor out of the water type, session, so that I'm feeling like I learned a lot and grew a lot throughout the process.
Yeah, totally. I agree 100%. I remember doing my assessing overviews, like the recordings for them. And it always felt like it was extra hard because I had the extra pressure knowing that this was being recorded and I was being assessed for it. And that pressure and feeling. And I was hoping my client would say good things and I would still catch things. And I had to get to a certain point in my own coaching development to feel confident in my ability to deliver an amazing coaching session and not care if it passed or not. When I was making or doing coaching sessions for the MCC, which is a ridiculous level, I feel like associate level is fairly easy to pass with basic coach training, which is what it's designed for. The professional is still fairly easy to pass if you've been trained for it. But the master level, I feel like they go the other way, and it's almost like, okay, you need to account for every single sigh, every pause, every syllable you utter, do not utter, explain why, and I mean it's intense. And I submitted 2 recordings. One did not pass. One passed. One did not. And it is what I expected, but I was hoping that they both would pass.
Mm-hmm.
So then you get another try. And I remember doing my other try, my third try. Really, I mean, I remember where I even was sitting. I mean, that's how intense the session was. And my client was going for it. I mean, he was in it. And I remember feeling like, that one scene in Spider-Man where he's holding the 2 trains together and he's like just feeling like he's holding the whole thing. I feel like that was like I was holding the space of the call. And I was barely hanging on, where I realized, wow, like I'm holding some pretty intense space here, but I felt capable. I felt up to the task. And in that moment, I felt this, I don't know, epiphany. It just felt like I knew that this coaching was changing this person's life without a doubt. Like this conversation, it's at that level where it's an honor to even have this conversation with someone, hold space, be confident with it. That at this point, it wasn't a perfect recording. There were things I know that weren't MCC standard, but at that point, I didn't care. I knew that the coaching was awesome enough that I just felt proud of it, just as is enough. This is a good. And the question then is, well, I know there's some parts that I would change, but do I send it? And I decided I'm just going to send it. It's at this point, I send. And when coaches get to that point, when you get to a point where yes, like this conversation is changing this person's life, send. Send. That would be my advice on overviews. Find that place.
I love that advice, and it reminds me of, the advice I always give in all my classes is, I know this sounds crazy, but really like the most basic thing that you have to get into to be an effective coach is just to lean into your curiosity, and not your curiosity for your sake, but your curiosity for your client's sake. And once you get into that space, mistakes might still happen, but it won't matter. You'll know that you're actually coaching and like you just said, like changing this person's life or making this, giving them the insights and the tools that they need to change their lives. And I feel like I don't remember exactly as vibrantly as you do when that happened for me, when that shift happened for me in my coaching. But I know for a while I was very much leaning on like, okay, I have my list of questions in front of me and I'm viciously writing down notes of everything that their person's saying, so don't forget anything. And I was just so caught up in doing it right. And once I finally was able to let go of like, I have to do this right after I ask the perfect question, I have to get this insight. And I was just able to say, like, you know what am I most curious about what they just said? And I just asked myself that question after every time, now I do it subconsciously, but like that's essentially what I'm asking myself every time I ask a new question. leaning into that curiosity, and it's just fundamentally changed the way that I coach. I've been able to lean into a more authentic version of my coaching where it's more creative and it's more fun. And so yeah, so I think that's great advice. And then the more pragmatic advice too, that you sort of alluded to earlier, which I also give out in classes is, you know, get used to just recording everything. Because when you're recording, you know, when you know that you're making a recording for an overview, that pressure's there and it changes the way that you coach. So consider just asking your practice clients to record everything. And if you decide you're not going to use it, you can let them know, hey, I'm going to delete this one, you know, but that way there's not that pressure anymore. You have several to choose from to send. Because I know my first 1.0, I was just recording the ones I knew I needed to send. And oh, the first couple were brutal because of that pressure. So I think those are some great pieces of advice too.